Hagmann and Hagmann Studios. This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Wednesday, May 6, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studios, my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And as I like to call, we are America's premier father-son investigative and investigative reporting team. We do the news triage so you don't have to. Our job is to bring you the news that really shapes the headlines, the news that is twisted and convoluted and hidden amid this funhouse of smoke and mirrors in the carnival we call the corporate media. Just want to say thank you for all the people who have checked in with us from all across the world, many in the United States, even the last couple of days, commenting on what a great program last night was. I want to say hello to all of you. Thank you so much for checking in with us. We really appreciate you dropping us a line, letting us know where you're listening from. Folks, for the new listeners, we broadcast live Monday through Friday from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the Internet is HagmannandHagmann.com. And, of course, we're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. We're very proud to say that portions of tonight's broadcast sponsored by Pro Flowers. And that's right, Pro Flowers. You know, Mother's Day, this Sunday, oh, guys, for our moms and our wives and for the very special people in our lives, what do you do? Well, we've got the answer. I'm going to tell you right now, you got it. For that particular special someone, Pro Flowers, you call 800-PRO-FLOWERS or go to proflowers.com. Now, if you go to the website proflowers.com, you click on that blue microphone box in the upper right-hand corner and type in our last name, Hagmann, Hagmann. And if you call 800-PRO-FLOWERS, make sure you mention Hagmann as your coupon code, if you will, because that'll give you the chance. Pro Flowers is offering listeners of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report 100 blooms with a free glass vase for just $19.99. That's proflowers.com and 800-PRO-FLOWERS. More about that later in tonight's program. We've got so much news, so much information right now. We've been at it all day, most of the day, just compiling information, researching the things, some things that you haven't heard, I can guarantee you, and things that you need to hear, that I promise you. But with that, Joe, it's great to have you in the studio.
It's great to be here. Got a lot to get into today, and we will get into hopefully most of what we plan to cover today. And had a good day and ready to rock and roll.
Well, exactly. And folks, if I can, let me give you an update here before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's program. An update about our studio. We're making progress in terms of getting things transferred. And I got to tell you, it is quite the job. We're tuckered. We are tuckered out. But in the end, we will be, this is without fail, we will be broadcasting from our new studio location on Monday. Now, here's why I'm mentioning that now, because the rest of this week, we've got Nathan Leal on Friday. We've got some issues in the transitioning of things, so it might be a little bit tonight and tomorrow night. We're going to be flying solo here, Joe and I, only because of the transitioning of equipment, cables, so many things now, the various other things that tie us and guests together. Okay. So you've got us for 2 nights back to back. Ain't it great? But what in the end, what we hope to do and hope to accomplish, and this is because of everyone who's supported us in, financially, because we are a listener-supported show. We really are. We take on selected sponsors, if you will, and that pays for that pays for some of the infrastructure, if you will. But that's it. So, but we're a listener-supported show, and it is because of you, your help, your assistance, your prayers especially, that we're able to do what we're able to do. We do expect a time where the Internet where we're going to be facing some decisions on the internet. We're not going to violate our conscience. We're not going to violate our beliefs, our commitment to God. We're not going to be held hostage by anyone at any time. So we are thinking at some point down the road, we're going to have to be able to work around, be heard without restriction. Now, obviously, I'm not going to get into detail, but that is the biggest and most important part of this particular move, having us to be able to have that capability, and also being able to fall back on plans B and C and D, and maybe even working those right in to our daily programming and expanding what we're doing. We intend to do more video. And I think that's extremely important. See, video takes bandwidth, and video takes certain equipment that to do a good job. I mean, look at InfoWars. Look at what a fantastic set that they've got. And I mean, kudos to Alex Jones and InfoWars for building what they have. All right, if we could strive to obtain attain the appearance. 50% of that's great. So that's what we're doing, and that's why we're doing this. And we prayed long and hard, and we sought counsel. We sought counsel with Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle and other people who are very important to us, and just to make sure we were doing the right thing. And I'll say this as well: it was a fight. I mean, it was a bloody fight to get that, to obtain that studio location. But anything worth it is going to be a fight. And I just want to say thank you for everyone who's prayed for us, and your prayers are indeed have been welcomed. But so if and I know a lot of people are saying, hey, I didn't get my bumper sticker, I didn't get my any response to my email. Well, I gotta give us a little bit of time. I think collectively we probably got about 5 hours of sleep over the last 24, and it's just it's just a lot of work. We don't have a staff. Just to let you know. I mean, it's just us. No staff, no secretaries, no grips. What do they call those people? I don't know. Anyway, so just kind of letting you know what's going on. So thank you so much for everything everyone has done, and we hope that once we get settled in on, I think you're gonna like some of the changes. This will also give us the opportunity to do much more research, and just because for operational security reasons, I'm not going to get into how that will play out, but you're going to see a lot more material coming out of our website as well, which is important because there's so much to talk about. I just want to, before we really get into the program as well, I just want to mention one thing. We didn't talk too much about this because of our schedule. We talked about this we talked about it on Monday, but I just want to drive this point home. We had that shooting incident in Texas, Garland, Texas, on Sunday. And a lot of people are accusing Pamela Geller and Steve Emerson and really others of baiting the Muslims. And Sunday night I was on with George Norrie on Coast to Coast AM, and he had made a statement to the extent, well, no one in Garland, Texas wanted this event to take place. Well, we didn't have the time to get into George Norrie's statement, but I'll just say this. That, to me, if you look at that statement by itself, and for people who make that statement, they're missing the point. And I would say it's more of a Stockholm syndrome situation by those making that point. In fact, you can draw parallels between that position. We don't want to inflame the Muslims through a free speech exhibit or a cartoon exhibit. We don't want to inflame them. Or we don't want to seem like we're baiting them. That we can draw parallels between that and what's going on in the Middle East, because there are many evangelical Christians in the Middle East and in Israel who are speaking out against the apartheid of Israel, who are saying that, or accusing Israel of being an apartheid state. And you know who they are, and you know who you are. And in fact, I think it was yesterday, the days are running together, there was a caller to Alex Jones accusing us and Alex Jones of being essentially being funded by Israel. Well, that's not the case, obviously. No one funds us. Israel certainly doesn't fund us. If they do, they're certainly behind on their payments, like forever behind. But we know Israel's position in God's eyes. But I just want to say this about what happened in Texas, and then we're going to turn it over to Joe, and we're going to hit the news. But in 50 years, maybe if you're listening to this show tonight, whoever if you're under, or if you're 50 years old, we'll say, it might not be in your generation, but certainly in your offspring's generation, you're going to see Muslims kill Christians in this country, if we have that long. And I say that because right now we've got ISIS. ISIS is not a new group. If you look back in history, look back to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire really serves as the model for ISIS. They slaughtered 3 million Christians and reduced any survivors to a second-class status under Islamic subjugation, or what is known as dhimmitude. ISIS is not new. It is merely the re-emergence of fundamentalist Islam. It's the Islam that everyone in America denies exists, or most, I shouldn't say everyone. It's the Islam that the politicians and the media and the comedians and the political pundits and the talking heads, they don't want to talk about. They deny it exists, but it's not new. ISIS is not a fanatical group. It's really, ISIS is comprised of Islamic believers who follow the Quran and Muhammad. End of story. Now, there are moderate Muslims, one might say, or westernized Muslims, but they're considered apostate. They may believe the Quran, or they may say they believe the Quran, but they certainly don't follow it. Think about this. And I think this bears repeating. ISIS is not doing anything that hasn't been done in the past by devout Muslims who have conquered a people they see as infidels. Let that sink in. 96%. And where have all the Christians gone in the Middle East? Because 96% of the people who populated the Middle East at the turn of the 8th century were Christians. 96%, 8th century Christians. Today, that Christian population has gone down to roughly 6% and is falling. Turkey, if you look at the nation of Turkey, that was once almost entirely Christian. Do you know how many Christians by percentage there are occupying Turkey right Under Saddam Hussein, people talk about Bush being a hero in freeing a people, right? George H.W. as well as George W. Bush. Whether it be Desert Storm or the Iraqi War. Iraq had more than 1 million Christians under the rule of Saddam Hussein. Now, I'm not sticking up for Hussein. How many are in Iraq today? Best guess estimate, a few thousand. From 1 million to a few thousand. If you look at the activities in Iraq this last Christmas, churches were empty. No church services. Where are they? I think you have to ask yourself, where are they? They're either in exile or they've been slaughtered by the Muslims. Now, very quickly here, I just want to reiterate the fact that ISIS is not new. These are devout Muslims. We saw this during the Ottoman Empire. It is the true Islam. It is not a fanatic group. History verifies this. We see ISIS in Iraq and Syria killing, maiming, torturing. Well, they're forcing people to convert or die. And if you're Christian, you might as well just die from ISIS. ISIS have slaughtered many children in front of their parents. There was a video not too long ago that was smuggled out of Iraq. Now, this is a country that George W. Bush liberated, and Obama said that we basically won, as did George Bush. But there was a video smuggled out of Iraq that shows 3 young boys, and I just hope you never ever run across this. See if you did see it. And just imagine 3, 5, 6, 7-year-old boys being tortured psychologically, taunted for their faith, and then ultimately killed. Imagine having 3 young... it's been a while since my youngest was 5 or 6 or 7 years old, but just imagine 3, 5, 6, 7-year-old boys in front of you or in front of a camera, and a Muslim asking one of the young boys, "Tell me, which one of you should I cut first?" holding a knife. Here, put your head here, and hearing the screams of the young boys in a room. There's nowhere to run. Well, when you're that young, 5 to 7 years old, you're not gonna. I mean, you're gonna be afraid. Well, the tormentor, the Muslim tormentor, says, "Yeah, all of you, come here." And ultimately, he grabs one of the boys, and he was in an all-white shirt. Of course, that boy screams. The other 2 boys are crying. Anyway, all 3 were ultimately beheaded on video. And in 2013, 3 Christian priests are shown in a video, being laid out or taken out to a field with their hands tied behind their backs, and the Muslim man wrestles one priest to the ground, and of course decapitates him, slices his head off, and there's several hundred Muslims in the background yelling Allahu Akbar. If you think that this is extreme, and I see this on message boards, both conservative and liberal, and I hear a lot of these pukes and the pundits talk about this. This is Islam. You see 25 times. The Quran has in it 25 times it says to kill Christians because of polytheistic beliefs. 25 times. 25 passages in the Quran. See, Muslims don't get the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. The same number of times, at the very least, the Quran warns us not to, or warns them not to befriend Christians. Europe right now is in the crosshairs of Islam, and it's going to be the next hot battle spot, especially France and, of course, Belgium. Why? Why those two countries? Because it's demographics, and the same thing is happening here, and I'm going to get that in a second, but think about this. Muslims make up about 6 to 10% of the population in those two countries. Germany, about 4.8%. She's got more than 4,000 mosques. If you look at America since 9/11 of 2001, look at how the mosques have popped up all across the country. And yes, there's a mosque at Ground Zero in New York City. And you know what? I'm so sick and tired of people, whether it's Colbert or Jon Stewart or some smug Letterman or whoever else it might be, or some political pundit saying there isn't, because there is. Just because it doesn't have a formal sign, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Everyone listening to this better understand this. A mosque is not just for prayer. It is the operational headquarters of a military and political system designed to kill Christians or non-believers, non-adherents to Islam. Now, on Monday, you remember I said that obviously there's a much bigger system here controlling the, behind this whole thing. There is, but it doesn't take away from the belief system of the fundamentalist Muslims. And every single mosque in this country is an operational center designed or teaching or preparing the attendees to kill the unbeliever, kill the infidel, and control the country, control the world. If you think that's overstating the case or hyperbole, then fine. Not a problem. But the bottom line is every mosque is a seditious entity in and of itself. Every imam that speaks and teaches in mosques they don't teach tolerance, they teach intolerance. In the Quran, there are 97 different verses against the unbeliever. There are verses against Christians who say God is the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I mentioned that before, the Trinity. Verses that say that they have to be, people who believe in that they have to be beheaded, smite their heads at the neck. This is what the Muslims are doing, and I'm going to tell you something. If you live long enough, you're going to see it happen in this country. There will never, ever be peace on earth if Islam is not stopped. And we know how the book ends. We know how the Holy Bible ends. It's not going to be stopped. But in the Quran, in the Hadith, the Sunnah, 36,800 times the words cut, kill, or attack appear. All right? Think about that. This is a fact. These are facts. This isn't hate speech, although it will certainly be classified as such in the not too distant future by the renegade in chief, by the Muslim in the White Hut. 36,800 times the words kill, cut, or attack can be found in the Quran and the Hadith. The Quran gives Muslim men permission to rape girls. It gives blanket amnesty for pedophilia. In conquered cities, ISIS has millions of Christians, whether it be in Iraq or Syria, with a red symbol of the Nazarene. Sound familiar in history? Those homes are then visited by ISIS members. And you don't want to know what happens to the people inside. You know, it's interesting because you've got a bunch of rope-a-dope idiots in this country. These bleeding heart liberals, progressives, Marxists, who believe that what I'm saying is taken out of context. It can't be true. It's not true. Well, look at Surah 5, verse 33, which states, "Indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive upon earth to cause corruption is none but they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, that they be exiled from the land." Yeah, out of context, my butt. You've got too many Muslim apologists in this country who are telling you lies, that are not telling you the truth. You've got too many pastors, preachers, ministers who don't have the guts to stand up and say, look, Islam has got to be stopped. And the Christians from the Middle East, they know these things. Right now there are 57 countries living under Islamic law. You know, where are these education experts and these people in favor of education for all and equality, equality for women? I don't hear too many women talking about the Middle East situation. Why not? Education is forbidden for girls in the Middle East. The women are nothing more than sex objects for the Muslim men. So I ask you this: if you're a liberal progressive listening to this show, chances are you're not. But if you know of someone who is, pass this question along. What are you doing about this? Is this okay with you? You get raped over in the Middle East, and you're a woman who gets raped? Your word's not good enough. No, you need not one or two. You need 4 witnesses. Yeah. And if you report it and you don't have the 4 witnesses, and I'm sure, well, what happens? You get punished. You get stoned. And again, the silence from these women's groups and these super educated women over here and groups over here, man, it's deafening. But understand one thing, and this is the point I'm trying to make, I suppose. America, the leaders of America are inviting the perps to the door, the slaughters, or the people who are slaughter, the individuals who will slaughter your children or produce offspring who will slaughter your grandchildren are being invited into this country. The United States right now takes in more refugees than any other country. Currently, 70,000 per year for resettlement in U.S. cities and towns. I'm talking about Muslims. The U.S. has accepted nearly 2 million Muslims from Muslim countries since 1992, which this number does not include family reunification, student visas, and employer-based immigration. Doesn't include that. Nor does it include the number who have snuck across through the southern border into the United States. Right now, what is taking place inside America is a parallel society. You see, they will not assimilate with Christians. They will not assimilate with our Christian culture. They will not assimilate with our laws, our democratic laws. No, they will control us. That's what they want to do. They want to shut us up and then kill us. So, the comedians can yuck it up. The political pundits can temper it down. But the truth of the matter is, you're being set up for the slaughter. And Islam is nothing more than a tool of the globalists to subjugate the people of the United States. Christianity, right now, parts of Christianity are being criminalized. We're being marginalized. But soon, Christianity will be fully criminalized. And you know what? It's the people who are shutting up right now, who are not saying a word right now, that are going to have blood on their hands. And see, that if it was us, if we don't say something right now, it is us who will have blood on our hands. And if we consider ourselves watchmen, then the penalty for us is double, biblically. You know the Bible verse I'm speaking of. And there are some in the alternative media, on the fringes of the alternative media, who take me to task, saying I'm not a Christian or I'm not a real Christian. Why? Why? Because I lay out the facts. Are these facts too inconvenient for you? Got an email here today saying, well, by preparing, you don't trust in God. All right. Really? You know what? I'm not even going to address that because that person is a fool, an idiot, a moron. And sorry if that's unchristian like to depict someone like that in those words, but I think they're accurate by definition. Because let me tell you something. Here we are. It's May 6th, 2015. If you are not preparing for what is coming and what is coming soon, like a freight train, if you're standing on the tracks, if you're living in this country or any Western country, and you're standing on the railroad tracks, metaphorically. Now, if you don't feel the tracks rumbling by the oncoming train, then there's something really wrong with you. We're headed for trouble in a big way. I don't know if it's this September, next September. I don't know if I don't know when. We don't date set. But I can guarantee you any number of things could happen or happen at the same time or either concurrently, consecutively, or roughly in the same time period. And tonight we're going to be talking about all of these. You've got this tremendous rise of the occult. And it doesn't matter. You know what? It doesn't matter if you think it's silly or it's stupid. I could just see Britt Human saying, oh, well, that's silly. Okay, he might think it's silly, but the people practicing the occult don't. They're deadly serious. And just because you think it's silly doesn't mean that it is. Because you see, belief is the driver of action. Is it not? In most cases. They don't care what you believe. People don't care what I believe. They care what they believe. So there's a dramatic rise in the occult. And you heard last night on the show with Tom Horn and Chris Putnam and Steve about the the activity and the active attempts to open portals and to let things in and out and going back and forth. And that's one big occult ritualistic. It's not a scientific experiment. It's an occult ritual. You have Bohemian Grove coming up this summer, dancing around the owl, grown men of power, in the words of Richard Nixon. And cover your ears, people, if this is offensive to you, but the faggiest place on earth. I didn't say that for effect. I said it as a descriptive way. Nixon thought of it. Bohemian Grove. Yeah, a lot of Christianity being practiced there, huh? So we've got this rise right now, and this is something that I spoke with George Orwell about, and also his producer. There are ISIS cults, or ISIS, that's ISIS cults in this country, ISIS groups in this country. There are members of ISIS in this country. Now, they may not say they're ISIS, or they won't have a name tag that says Abdul or, Rahman, and then underneath Second Lieutenant ISIS. No. It's going to be much. I mean, they're much more covert than that. They're much more, chilling than that. Their operational tactics are a little bit less obvious. But there will be, and I'm going to tell you right now, on this 6th day of May, 2015, before the summer is out, you will see multiple killings by members of ISIS or self-proclaimed members of ISIS in this country. Meanwhile, the White House, the White Hut, the Muslim renegade-in-chief is not going to say anything, and the Department of Justice is not going to do anything. And certainly the FBI will not classify any of this as hate crimes. Any of these as hate crimes. The Muslims will get a pass. Every stinking one of them. Now, if that's harsh, well, turn on a few videos. Watch 3, 5, 6, and 7-year-old boys cry for their lives and then be get beheaded. And you tell me what's harsh. But you see, it's the globalists, it's the global elite who are putting this together, who are directing this traffic, this flow of Muslim terrorists into the country, allowing this to happen. And I'm talking about John Boehner. I'm talking about, of course, the biggest Muslim-in-chief, Barack Hussein Obama. I'm talking about Valerie Jarrett, the policymakers. I'm talking about every member of Congress, every person that has not spoken up against this illegal immigration and keeping the borders open. I don't care if it's Jeb flipping Bush or I don't care. There's something ungodly, bad, wrong with keeping the southern border open and unchecked. If they're going along with it, in my view, well, they're an enemy. They're seditious by their very nature. But I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to turn it back over. What's not being said are all the vandalism, acts of vandalism, acts of really terroristic threats in various forms being conducted right now in this country against synagogues and churches, Christian churches and Jewish synagogues. It's not the mosques that are getting vandalized. You'll have the occasional some stupid thing happen. Somebody throws a slab of bacon or a pork chop on the mosque porch. Now I'm talking about symbols of the occult Nazism and sayings in Arabic that mean kill the infidel, kill the unbeliever. I'm talking about things that are very serious right now. In Brooklyn, over the last couple of weeks, in the 5 boroughs over the last couple of weeks, there were no less than a dozen incidents of violence against churches and synagogues. Did you hear about any of this on the news? Of course not. And it's just going to get worse. But trust me when I tell you, if this is not stopped, your children, your grandchildren, will face the ultimate sacrifice. And if you think that's all right, if you're content not to do anything about it right now, if you think that, hey, that's not my problem, then shame on you. But I know you're not like that. The people listening to the show are very proactive, and I'll tell you this: we are going to fight. We have already picked our side. Our side is the side of the victor. We're fighting from a position of victory. We know who our God is. And just to be clear one last time, the God of Christians is not the same God of Islam. You don't worship. Anyone who utters the words, we worship the same God, making reference to the Christians and Muslims, and I get smacked upside the head because it's a lie, and it's a contemptible lie, and there's contemptuous intolerance being conducted right now, and the intolerance as well, and not in addition to Islam, you've got the homosexual agenda as well. that is part and parcel to the globalist, or it's one of the tools in the globalist toolbox, that, believe it or not, goes right along with the, even though it's antithetical to Islam, it goes right along with the Muslim takeover of this country. You can, it's strange bedfellows with the globalists. So we're looking at a very rough couple of months, and I would say a pretty hot summer. The race baiting by the renegade in chief, the racial strife that's being caused, the economic strife that is being caused and will be exacerbated this year. Thanks Bob and Maggie for sending this. Christine Lagarde, in the speech earlier, sure had. Remember that crazy speech the IMF, Christine Lagarde, had gave with numerology. I don't have the exact note in front of me here, but Bob Maggie had said, used the number 7. She made reference to the number 7 a couple of times, and of course 7 is, if you look at the seventh month, that's July, and that's Jade Helm month, and that provides me this segue, and I'm going to turn it over to Joe here. Jade Helm. You've got Louis Gohmert, a sitting U.S. congressman, Louis Gohmert, a sitting U.S. congressman, saying Americans, yes, Americans do have something to be concerned about with Jade Helm. But you know what? Apparently, and he did look at Pentagon maps in addition to what we saw, what we've seen, we meaning the public. Yet you still have people who say, well, this is just conspiracy crazy talk. It's insane talk. All right. So you don't want to hear the truth from Alex Jones. You don't want to hear the truth from Steve Quayle. You don't want to hear the truth from Hagmann and Hagmann. You don't want to hear the truth from Rick Wiles. And you don't want to hear the truth from a sitting U.S. congressman. Well, apparently you don't want to hear the truth. Because it's funny. The so-called conservative, Republican conservative forum, Free Republic, it's funny to me. You go to that forum and you look at the headline, Louis Gohmert gets why some Texans are worried about a military takeover. That's their title, not mine. And then you read these entries, what would you call them, postings to the forum, and nasty from so-called conservatives saying, well, this is conspiracy talk. Tighten your tinfoil. Apparently you've got a problem. Okay. So who do you want to hear the truth from? A sitting U.S. congressman says, yeah, as Americans, we have something to worry about. All right. If you won't listen to those aforementioned people, sources, then who do you want to listen to? You just want to play make-believe? We'll just make-believe everything is fine. And then, of course, you got the people. And actually, I saw more sensible comments on the far left than I did on the so-called conservative right, but that's another story. But the conservative right, if they are so-called conservative morally, should know better. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that concludes my opening statement.
Well, too bad it wasn't 14 minutes longer. You could have taken us to the top of the hour.
Oh, I can go another 14, believe me.
Let's back up and hit a few things that you touched on. Last thing you hit was the Louis Gohmert gets why some Texans are worried about a military takeover. This is what was written in the article. U.S. Special Operations Command is preparing to launch a month-long multi-state exercise across private and public land to prepare Army Special Forces for threats anywhere in the world. Or at least that's what the Pentagon would want you to believe. Officials and citizens in Texas, one of the states involved, see something potentially more nefarious in the exercise, dubbed Jade Helm 15, and now Representative Louis Gohmert is joining them. Over the past few weeks, my office has been inundated with calls referring to Jade Helm 15 military exercise scheduled to take place between the 15th of July and the 15th of September. Gohmert said in a statement Tuesday, "This military practice has some concern that the U.S. Army is preparing for a modern-day martial law. Certainly I can understand their concerns. When leaders within the current administration believe that major threats to the country include those who support the Constitution, are military veterans, or even cling to guns and religion, patriotic Americans have reasons to be concerned," Gohmert wrote. The congressman took particular issue with the layout and labels from the Pentagon map for the exercise. Once I'd observed the map depicting hostile, permissive, and uncertain states' locations, I was rather appalled that the hostile areas amazingly have a Republican majority, cling to their guns and religion, and believe in the sanctity of the United States Constitution. Gohmert called on the Pentagon to change the map and the names on the map, and said the tone of the exercise needs to be completely revamped so the federal government is not intentionally practicing war against its own states. The Pentagon has insisted that claims about Jade Helm is anything other than a military exercise, and one that says would have an in-state economic benefit, are completely bunk. Jade Helm is long-planned and coordinated exercise, a Pentagon spokeswoman told CNN. "We are not taking over anything," but that has not quelled concerns. In late April, Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent an open letter to the Texas State Guard asking it to keep a tight watch on the exercise. During the training operation, Abbott wrote, "It's important that Texas know their safety, constitutional rights, private property rights, and civil liberties will not be infringed." On Monday, Abbott defended the letter, saying that the office is playing a pivotal role of government that is to provide information to people who have questions. And the article goes on from there.
Well,
ending with this,
go ahead.
as Chuck Norris weighed in and said, whether deterrence, display of power, or something more covert or devious, let's not come with any patronizing nonsense of impotence and simplicity when its origins in Washington, writes Chuck Norris. And the article ends with, "The Pentagon has only so many more ways of saying, trust us, not Walker, Texas Ranger."
Well, if you look at Jade Helm as purely a military exercise, people are suspicious, and for good reason, because how many federal military exercises have this very odd historical tendency to suddenly coincide with very real matters of crisis, very real terrorist attacks? I think you know what I'm talking about. We don't know. Here's the thing. We don't know a whole lot about Jade Helm beyond what the government and their spokespeople have said. And we know that, and I was talking with Nathan Leal late Friday, early Saturday morning this past, and he's going to be on Friday night. And he made mention, Joe, of that video by the guy that's running, the military guy that's running Jade Helm. I don't know, Alexander, or whoever the guy's name is. And if you watch the video, and Nathan, ladies and gentlemen, you know Nathan, right? I mean, he's a soft-spoken guy. But, man, he blew my eardrum out and said, "Man, the guy lied. The guy outright lied in the interview, answering the question." Not only did he lie, he misdirected other people, or the people that were in attendance. You see, if you trust the federal government for anything outside of your Obama phone or your Bush phone, but it's probably more accurate. Okay, Bush phone as opposed to Obama phone. And you can do your own research and find out why. But or if you trust the government beyond collecting and spending your money, spreading the wealth, as in Marxist, communist type things, then you're foolish. And I just want to speak out about this too. Okay, we have people saying, well, we know at the very least JADE is an acronym for Joint Assistance for Deployment and Execution. Show me where that is. Somebody show me in a government document that that's exactly what that acronym stands for, Joint Assistance for Deployment and Execution. Show me. Show me a government document that shows that's what JADE stands for. We admit we're speculating, you and I, and I mean our guests, but it's reasoned speculation. But when people make an assertive statement like that, or show me where 15, Jade Helm 15, show me the significance of that number. Like I saw somebody a columnist, and I'm not going to name the person, right? Well, the person wrote that means there were 14 previous similar exercises. Just show me where that number means that number is sequential in origin. Seriously? Have a whole lot of hard evidence presented to us, or we cultivated, except the evidence or the documentation, Joe, you and Nathan had gotten. And folks, you can find this. Go back to Nathan Leal's last appearance. If you go to Hagmann which is our internet presence. Yes, I didn't update it today. Or no, I didn't update it today. But if you go to Hagmann, go to Nathan's last appearance. You got to scroll. Go to past shows. There's a blue box up there, past shows. Scroll down to Nathan's last appearance. You will find a listing of PDF files. The PDF files are government military war college files, and they will explain about human. What is that? Human domain master
of human domain.
Right. They'll explain that. They'll explain what that means. And right on the logo is about mastery of the human domain. So we know that much, and that's not pretty. That is not pretty, folks. It is not pretty, and it's psychological warfare. It is the people who don't have any clue of what they're talking about will talk about fourth generational warfare. Okay, it's not as simple as that, and I don't want to get into the whys and wherefores of this. Okay, fourth generation. So some will call that psychological warfare, but it's much more than that. It's a specific strategy. The best way to describe that fourth generational warfare is this: you take one selective group of the population who you want to control. And then you take we'll call them the Bloods. And then you take another population that you want to control. We'll call them the Crips. And then you get somebody from the Crips to the head of the Crips to call up the head of the Bloods and says, your mama wears combat boots or something, okay? Your mama's ugly. And they start fighting amongst themselves. All right? And it involves a war of attrition, but meanwhile you also have the psychological aspects, and you know what I mean. So it's a lot more than that. So what we're seeing here, and this is, we also have, in addition to all of that, you've got the extraction, but you also the extraction of the patriots, the constitutionalists. Okay, now are they practicing for the extraction, or are they extracting? It doesn't matter to me, because if they're doing it, you fight like you train. You train like you fight. Okay? If they're doing it, it doesn't matter. Because at some point, whether it's tomorrow or the next week or the next month or the next year, this is what they're going to do. And, oh, by the way, you don't train, you don't do this in Texas or Utah and say you're doing it because, well, we're going to go over to Sudan. No, because you're talking about blending into a culture. You fight like you train. So, so don't tell me that we are conspiracy kooks for even questioning this. Moreover, you got Louis Gohmert and others saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong. And, of course, Chuck Norris, right? Well, don't tell me not to question this. We've got a movement in this country. The constitutionalists. If you look around, all the people who listen to this show pretty much are, and the people who care about the Constitution, the people who care about the Bible, the people who care about the Second Amendment, the people who care about free speech, we're pretty much leaderless. Did you notice that? We're leaderless, and I kind of hope it stays that way, because that way you can't have, for example, like a Night of the Long Knives if you know history. So, on the other hand, there are enough high-profile people within the patriotic movement where an incident can be blamed upon us. And remember what happened in the 90s, how close we came in the 90s when the Clintons said, Rush Limbaugh at the time, he caused all of these well, I think it was around the time Waco and other incidents and Ruby Ridge, and now it's expanding out to Alex Jones. Oh, Alex Jones is causing all of this, right? No, he's exposing this. He's not causing this. But you see where history now is repeating itself? In the 90s, Clinton, Rush Limbaugh. Now it's 2015, Obama, and even Republicans, or even conservatives, more accurately, and Alex Jones, or Steve Quayle, or Hagmann and Hagmann, or you name it. See, this is, and then you look at Jade Helm, and you look at the insertion of, I'm going to say, spies into the Patriot movement. That's really simplified, but you get what I'm saying. And then the extraction of the troublemakers. And once more, it doesn't matter if it's coming up, if it happens in July, August, September of 2015 or 2016 or 2018, because they're training for it. So what? They're training for it. So don't tell me they're not expecting to make it happen. And they're training for it in American cities. And to those people who even say today, well, the American military is not going to turn on its people, its own citizens. Well, maybe the majority may not, or maybe some may not. And Nathan Liel has some very important information about this on Friday. And if I can get my act together, I'm going to draft something up and send it over to Nathan beforehand, because I really want this to go far and wide. But having said that, if that doesn't bother you, if you don't think that could ever happen, what about the merging, the melding, the cross-training between and the incestuous relationship between the military now and DHS and FEMA and the FBI and any other intelligence agency you can think of, and municipal police forces? Is this a good idea? Are you okay with seeing military train on the streets of Main Street, USA? If you are, then you know something, you don't understand history. Or if you do understand history and you're okay with it, then you're certainly on the wrong side of history. And you know what? I'm kind of glad we get some issues with the equipment, because I got a lot to say over the next 2 days.
You'll have the time to say it.
Right on.
But not right now, because we're going to a break. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this May 6th, a Wednesday, 2015 edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. We got a lot of news to get into. We're going to take our quick commercial break and come right back and hit this news. Stay with us on this Wednesday. A lot of economic news to get into, as well as other news this hour. And I played that clip of Ted Breuer because I wanted to lead out with this article from yesterday out of Reuters. Exclusive: U.S. boosts bird flu emergency fund as Hormel cuts jobs. The U.S. government approved the use of an additional $330 million in emergency funds to help contain the worst avian influenza outbreak in U.S. history, as infected bird cases soared in the hundreds of Minnesota poultry workers and learned they would not have their job. There goes my screen scrolling down to the bottom automatically. There's a huge outbreak of influenza, bird influenza, a virulent H5 Asian influenza has infected so many birds. Turkeys, they're saying there's going to be a shortage in turkeys for this Thanksgiving.
Buy your Thanksgiving turkeys now.
It says Minnesota is the largest producer of U.S. turkeys. The state official said almost 5.5 million turkeys and their eggs have been killed in an effort to contain the outbreak. In Iowa, the top U.S. egg producer, the state agricultural official estimated that 20 million chickens and turkeys have been affected there. The outbreak's economic ripple effects are being felt across numerous sectors, from food companies seeing a squeeze on egg supplies to meat producers flooded with excess poultry products aimed export market bans. On Tuesday, Hormel Foods Corporation unit Genie O turkey store said it would temporarily lay off 233 workers at the Minnesota plant effective May 26 because the flu has reduced turkey supplies. It was the first known instance of a company linking job cuts to the bird flu. There is no date set for the workers to return. Our intent is to have everyone come back to work when bird numbers return to normal levels, Randy Viergen said, a manager at the turkey store plant in Minnesota, said in a statement. The outbreak has also raised concerns that turkey supplies may be tight for the Thanksgiving holiday season. The strain poses a low risk to human health, experts say, and no human infections have been identified so far, but we could see an economic squeeze. They go on to say, while scientists believe birds are spreading the disease, researchers do not know exactly how this highly pathogenic H5 virus has penetrated inside barns. The outbreak is also hurting scores of U.S. poultry farmers who are expected to submit claims to the U.S. Agriculture Department in the wake of birds becoming infected and flocks culled. Farmers in Minnesota are in financial and emotional whirlwind, said State Representative Janine Pope, a Democrat. Turkey processing plants are being forced to idle production lines because of the drastic decline in turkey supplies, and workers are being laid off. Initially, the USDA had set aside $84.5 million to compensate farmers for the outbreak-related costs. The agency can use the additional funds to pay for the expected increase in claims filed by poultry farmers. So we are seeing the biggest bird flu in U.S. history.
And this,
right down here.
Exactly.
They say it's a low risk poses a low risk to human health, and there have been 0 human infections. But like I said, they also state that the economic impact of this, and you see there's already almost 230 jobs that were laid off. This has spread to 14 different states in 5 months and affected at least 24 million different birds so far. And these are farming birds, not flock birds.
I worked a case as an investigator that was it was a case of industrial espionage, and it reminds me of that way to get at a sector of the economy, especially the food producing sector, that the poultry producing sector, then to kill off the product that you're selling. Now, I'm not saying that this is an intentional thing that the government has done, or the global, I shouldn't say government, the global criminals cabal of leadership. However, it is suspicious and suspiciously timed, especially when you're looking at transmutation. Well, you're saying that there is no transmutation into humans, but
they're saying that the strain, it's a H5 avian influenza. The strains have been spread to 14 states, 24 million birds affected, 0 human infections at this time.
Well, just the cost alone, the economic cost alone, would be absolutely astronomical to the industry.
It's at $400 million right now.
Okay, so since we're not the Obamas or the Bushes or the Clintons, we don't eat Kobe beef, or we don't eat whatever they eat. Okay, I don't know. I don't even know what food, special food they eat. Of course, we eat chicken and we eat turkey. Why? Because it's not that expensive, although it's rising. It's rising every day. But so isn't this interesting? Now they're drugging it. Through this, the poultry prices are being driven up. You're also having middle class families their personal economies being destroyed by this. And of course, there's nothing to see here, folks. Just move on. It's just one of those weird, poultry things, flu viruses. And hey, we just got to kill off how many million? And of course, $400 million worth of economy. You don't think it has any effect on on any of us? Of course it does. It's important, very important, and we have to follow that very closely.
And then another article here. This was something that you touched on in the first hour, but there's a new report that deals with the number of people internally displaced citizens, or people who've had to leave their homes. A record 38 million people have been internally displaced worldwide in 2014. This from a new report. Conflicts and violence made 30,000 people flee their homes each day in 2014, pushing the overall number of internally displaced citizens to a high of 38 million.
38 million.
Release report classifies. The number of displaced thus equals the total populations of London, New York, and Beijing combined. This specifies the report by the Norwegian Refugee Council and the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center. The overviewing concern, covering 60 countries, says 11 million people were forced to move within their own countries in 2014 alone. As a result of the ongoing conflicts, the number of internally displaced people worldwide now stands at 38 million, the highest in a generation. There are now more than twice the number of internally displaced peoples than there are refugees, according to the report. Global diplomats, UN resolutions, peace talks, and ceasefire agreements have lost the battle against ruthless armed men who are driven by political and religious interests rather than humanitarian imperatives.
Yeah.
It goes on to say the worst countries for the internal displacement is Iraq, South Sudan, Syria, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Nigeria, which accounted for 60% of all new displacements worldwide.
So of that 60%, I would say 90% of that 60% were caused by Western intelligence involvement. Look at Syria.
The highest country is Iraq.
Okay, look at Iraq.
2.2 million fleeing their area under ISIS control.
Right.
Syria has been raging for 3 years. 7.1 million people displaced. 35% of the country's population, and 1.1 million of them were forced out of their homes in 2014. South Sudan, 1.1. And it goes on from there. The Ukraine, 650,000 people
right,
have been forced out of their homes since the beginning of 2014.
Well, remember back at the time of Benghazi, when we spoke about the Benghazi was really by proxy Russia's response to the United States attacking the CIA compound in Benghazi was through Ansar al-Sharia and other related organizations. They attacked the CIA compound in Benghazi because we were funneling weapons and personnel up into Syria, and I contend right now that Syria remains one of the highest. You talk about Ukraine and other places, but Syria remains a very heated, hot, very prized area. Okay, and now through the efforts of the Western intelligence world, their agencies, the CIA, MI6, Israeli Mossad, and others, what is taking place is a serious displacement of mostly Christians, but more importantly, yes, I said more importantly, by number, you've got the equivalent of middle class being displaced in Syria into other countries. But you also have the crisis, or when I say crisis, you also have the condition where the refugees are being created. The State Department is bringing refugees into this country under the pretext of political refugees and asylum seekers without doing any background investigation. You've got a disproportionate number of Arabic and Middle Eastern Muslims in that whole number, and you're changing the demographic of the United States as well as the moral culture fiber of this country, and we are destroying this country through this type of activity, an activity that's being sanctioned by every single politician that's sucking air inside the Beltway or whatever they're. I'm not going to finish that, but you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Now, I have a number of economic stories to get into, but I see on your computer screen you got a story we talked about earlier today.
Yeah, I do.
And why don't we get into this?
This is important. I called Doc Marquis on this today.
All right. This is a very convoluted yet interesting story. Aide to California state attorney accused of running an occult police force claiming to be 3,000 years old. And this article is from Yahoo News from AP. California Attorney General Kamala Harris, one of California Attorney General Kamala Harris's staffers, was arrested last week accused of operating a rogue police force that claimed to exist for more than 3,000 years, the Los Angeles Times reported Wednesday. Brandon Keel, Deputy Director of Community Affairs at the California Department of Justice, and two others, David Henry and Tonette Hayes, reportedly faced charges for their role in the Masonic Fraternal Police Department. Suspicions about the Masonic Fraternal Police Department, whose members trace their origins to the Knights Templar, were aroused when various police chiefs in Southern California received a letter in late January that announced new leadership for the group, the Times' Matt Hamilton wrote. Following an investigation, officials said sheriff's investigators searched two sites in Santa Clarita and found badges, weapons, uniforms, and law enforcement paraphernalia. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department said in a statement that the Masonic Fraternal Police Department was not a legitimate police force, and that Keel, Henry, and Hayes were arrested for allegedly impersonating police officers.
Boy, I got a lot to say about this.
Go for it.
Oh, okay. I called Doc Marquis, and Doc Marquis is aware of this, and he said, okay, you've got a very, very bad group of people. All right, I'll just say it that. Now, what's going on with this? And this, please, everyone listening to this, this is not a small, insignificant story. But the story, the article, this does not stop with these three people. This does not stop with the aides, or one of the suspects being an aide to the California Attorney General, Kamala Harris. Okay, it goes beyond these three people, and it goes far beyond this story. Because this is all about the occult. It is all about the occult societies. This is, and has the capability to expose the true nature of Freemasonry for the occult organization that it is. Now, every single time, and I know I'll get emails about this every time, I'm going to say, well, my brother-in-law, he's a Freemason, and he's in the Masonic Lodge, and you don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing occult about it. Okay, I had a guy here last year. He did I had a situation where I needed some assistance at my home with a repair, and he was a member of the Masonic Lodge, and my goodness, you'd have thought I tried to date his wife or something when I mentioned about the Masonic angle. Needless to say, I had it wasn't a very happy conversation, and it certainly didn't leave here on good terms. It was not because of me either. It was because of his response to what I was asking. But see, here's the thing. This goes back to Knights Templar, okay? The Masonic Fraternal Police Department is a group. It's not just these individuals located in Southern California. It goes far beyond that, and it's a movement that involves many other groups all across the United States, Mexico, and especially Mexico, and it involves occult practices. People who believe that they are advancing the agenda of the Illuminati. They believe that they are, and in some cases, they're recognized as the enforcement of the Illuminati. And they are, and in some cases, they are getting their marching orders from the members of the Illuminati. Now, you might say, well, who are they? What members of the Illuminati are giving them marching orders? Well, it goes through various institutions in this country, and look at it this way: this group, and you can go to their website as well. I have, and I've captured all the documentation from their website. You can look it up for yourself. Masonic Fraternal Police Department. Masonic Fraternal Police Department.org. That's their website, Masonic Fraternal Police Department, all one word, scrunched together, .org. They boast of nearly 7,000 Grand Lodges. They say that they are in all 33 states. Now, take that for its true meaning, 33 degrees, 33 states, the number 33. And I'm sure listeners, each and every one of you, especially if you're hearing this for the first time, listeners, we've got the best audience in the world. So you can certainly chime in via email, send me emails, and I'll read every one of them, your thoughts about all 33 states. If anyone has been able to infiltrate, shall we say, or let me rephrase this, if anyone has been able to access their website, I certainly would like to know what's behind the password-protected website. Oh, and you can like them on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook and Twitter. But, their chief of police, Chief Henry.
There's a few inconsistencies. I mean, things that just made me wonder. Obviously, it's being reported by Associated Press, Reuters.
But it's being downplayed. You know what? It's being
33 states was one thing that stuck out to me like this was a joke.
No, it's not a joke.
Another thing that stuck out to me was they say in here, and I'm reading a quote. I'm going to read a quote here. They trace their origins. The website for the Masonic Police Force says the group was created by the Knights Templar in 1100 BC. What did the Knights Templar do in history?
I hope that's a rhetorical question, right?
Oh, I'm just asking. They protected the Christians in the Crusades that were in Israel.
Go on.
Well, Christians weren't Christians until after Jesus was on earth, right? So why 3,000 years? Why 1100 BC?
Okay.
And it's because it has nothing to do with Christianity. It has to do with mystery religions and King Solomon.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
But the fact that they say they trace their roots to the Knights Templar, began in 1100 BC, that's
okay.
Almost an oxymoron.
About the Knights Templar, let's talk about the Knights Templar, because, and folks, you might think that this has no bearing for current events today, but it most certainly does. When you look at the Knights Templar, for example, they've been associated with just all sorts of things, from possessing the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. They have this very feared, battle-hardened reputation. They're known as a group that's very well educated. They are dedicated, by their own statements, to protecting travelers and pilgrims of all religions, not just Christians. Great statesmen and so on, very politically adept, very, very intelligent. Now, they're known as the preservers, as the guardians of knowledge and sacred objects, okay? And they've got a history that, now, this goes beyond the History Channel's history, but you can talk, it goes back to the building of King Solomon's Temple by the Phoenician Masons from Tyre, and the Great Pyramid in Atlantis. Now, some of this obviously is not correct when I'm saying, by their beliefs. It's obviously not correct, or it's exaggerated, overstated. But you're right, Joe. I mean, their more modern history, outside of that early age of antiquity, you can trace them from the Crusades through the Middle Ages. And their origin, well, how did they begin? The group of 9 knights, French knights, came to Jerusalem in 1118 A.D. So right now, the 3,000-year-old claim is...
Unless you're talking about somebody else.
Well, it's deeper than that 3,000-year-old claim. You're talking about the gods, small g, and the biggest small g god of all, Satan. But really, it began in 1118 AD, and the Knights. This attracted me. I mean, when I say attracted me, a lot of interest. This holds a lot of interest to me. The Order of the Knights of Solomon's Temple, or the Knights Templar, is what it's known as. And if you trace it forward, you could trace, let's say, from the original knights, you could trace them through the Temple of Solomon, the Knights Hospitaliers or the Knights of St. John, later to the Knights of Malta. But we shouldn't confuse, and you can't do this. You can't confuse the Knights Templar with the Knights of Malta. Many historians do that, and that's incorrect. The Knights Templar are quite different from the other Crusaders, and they were very brutal in combat versus the Knights of Malta. Now, what does this have anything to do, or what does all this have to do with today? Well, you're looking at these different orders, these Masonic orders, these ancient orders, religious. When I say religious, that includes the religion of Satanism. That, and I'm not talking about the Knights Templar here. I'm talking about the Masonic angle that we're talking about. That leads up to, including to people like Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was extremely involved in the Templars. In fact, he wrote a play about the Knights Templar. He was familiar with the Templar orders in Freemasonry, and he took the name Baphomet for his position as Grand Master of the Ordo Templi Orientis. So the OTO, as Paul McGuire talks about often, and makes reference to often. And so the occult thread here is what's important. If you've got, it's kind of like, it's kind of like rats. You see one rat, you can bet. You see one rat in a barn, you can bet there are a whole lot more than just that one. Well, that's what this story means to me. You got one group in California that's exposed, and being exposed through something is, one may call it ridiculous, but others might call it pretty in your face, that being dressing up and representing yourself as a police officer and believing you have the authority as a police officer charged by this ancient right based on your bloodline, then that's a problem. Because remember, at the beginning of the program, when I said it doesn't matter what you believe, it matters what they believe. All right? I mean, that's how to look at this, in my view, anyway. So what Doc Marquis said was to me, was very insightful, and Doc's going to be coming on here at some point to talk about this and other things, but he said, look, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and this has got a whole lot of, this is exposing the Masonic occult practices in Southern California. But once you begin to pull the thread on this, you're going to find a whole bunch of other rats inside the barn, in a twisted analogy, if you will. This is just the beginning. And to find that this happened under the watch of Kamala Harris, the AG, the Attorney General of California, is absolutely incredible to think about. Now, if you look at the photographs of the three people who were arrested in this running this rogue police force, and if you look at the race, they're all black. So is Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not being racial. There's no racial bigotry here. It's like describing, for example, a bank robber. which I find rather interesting. How many times have you heard on the news, we're looking for a male, 35-year-old male, 5'6", wearing a brown jacket and black gloves. That's really a heck of a description, right? They omit race. But anyway, that was just kind of an offshoot. But I guess what I'm saying here, in this particular case, you've got 3 African American or 3 black individuals, and Kamala Harris is also black. Now, there are different groups of this particular organization in a larger sense. And I know that there is also, from what Doc Marquis said, that its origins and also other groups. There's an Arabic origin as well, but there's also a very virulent Caucasian sect part of this group as well. In addition so look at this as the umbrella group of the Freemasonry and the smaller organization or the offshoot of the other part of the organization, that being this Masonic fraternal police organization. I don't know if I just talked in circles there, but you get what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
All right, but please watch this. This is no small story. You start pulling the thread on this one, you're going to find all sorts of things dropping out of this, from California to Vermont, from Portland to Miami. I guarantee you, and everywhere in between, because there is a mess. And see, Russ Dizdar talks about the occult. This is truly, the mere arrest of Chief Henry, the chief of police of the Masonic Fraternal Police Department. It's just merely that's nothing. No. Dig deeper. And I guarantee you, to those listening, we will be digging deeper. And thank you again thank you everybody thank you for your support for us, because right now I feel like we can do a lot more. I mean, being able to really do research now in ways that we didn't have the ability before. And I'm referencing, of course, thanking everyone for the ability for us to work from next week from a new studio with new equipment. And thank you, just thank you. That's kind of just an extra thank you for those tuning in just for the second hour. So anyway, Joe, go ahead.
All right.
Save me from myself. The words are just falling out of my mouth.
To economic news.
Yeah.
First out of Greece. Greece introduces cash point tax in desperate bid to raise revenue and stop run on banks as country teeters on the brink of bankruptcy. Greece has revealed to induce a surge charge for all cash point withdrawals and financial transactions in a desperate attempt to prevent citizens from withdrawing their money from the country's banks. Ministers hope the controversial move could raise as much as 180 million euros, which the Athens government hopes will help the country avoid defaulting on debts owed to international creditors. As the Greek economy teeters on the verge of bankruptcy, millions of panicking citizens are completely clearing their accounts, pulling more than 28 billion euros out of banks and pushing the total cash revenue held in the country's financial institutions to a 10-year low. Clarifying that the charge will not apply to money paid into a bank account, a senior finance ministry official told the Times, the surcharge is just one of a grab bag of measures we are considering if things get tough. The official added that Greece is also considering a ceiling on bank transfers over $1 million in what could fire the starting pistol for capital gain controls if Greece does go bust over the coming months. The news comes as EU upgraded its growth outlook for the Eurozone on the back of cheaper oil and a weak currency, but a sudden worsening of Greece cast a pall over the brightening situation. The improved spring forecast report said the Eurozone would avoid much feared deflation as the 19-country area claws its way back to levels last seen before the global financial crisis. Well, what they're doing here, they're charging €1 for every cash withdrawal and $1 for every $1,000 transaction.
Right.
And the charge of €1 will
long
apply to all ATM withdrawals and transfers over $1,000.
How long can they sustain this? How is this sustainable?
Well, they say they hope that to deter savers from pulling money out of their struggling banks. As I said earlier from the report, more than 28 billion euros have been pulled out of the banks, pushing the country's financial institution to a 10-year low on cash holdings. Now, is this sustainable for depositors?
Well, for the people, for people like us, for normal people, not the 1%, okay, not the 1/10 of 1%. For normal people, can we sustain under these conditions, especially with the criminalization of cash? And it doesn't matter if you're listening to us in the UK or in Greece or in Spain or in, where it doesn't matter. If you've got, we're being forced, are we not? And this is the larger story here, I think. Digging deeper into this, are we not being forced into a digital, or a computer screen of money, as opposed to a computer screen and a plastic card for money right now, as opposed to cash in our pocket? Isn't this what's going on? I mean, in a nutshell, this is what they're doing, right? Or am I missing the point?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what is this about? Capturing, and this is a trick question. Is this about capturing wealth? Or, grabbing wealth, or grabbing your money, your money, folks listening to this? Or is this about control? Or is this about surveillance? And the answer would be yes to all, because we're being pushed toward the centralization. There's two things that we're being pushed towards, and this news story really highlights it. You're being manipulated through the control of money, your money, into the pure transparency. In other words, there's nothing you're going to be able to hide from this global system of monetary governance. You're not going to be able to buy, sell, or trade anything without the government knowing about it. And you will lose out if you try to engage in the black market activities. Now, the black market will sustain for a period of time, and I believe that we've got a lot of time within that black market. And I believe that there's a lot of ways that we as human beings can sustain, but they're making it more difficult through acts like this in Greece. And what you see happening in Greece is going to happen here in this country and elsewhere, and it's coming.
Think about it. With the banks, we started talking about this, and this was an increase in U.S. banks recently, how if you take a check to be cashed, say someone writes you a check for whatever reason, and you don't have an account at that bank, and you want to just cash that check, you're getting charged surcharges.
Oh, yeah.
Just for cashing the check. So if you don't have an account, you're really paying more for cashing a check or doing banking at that particular bank. And we have another article here from Reuters on Janet Yellen cites potential dangers in U.S. stock valuations. The Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen on Wednesday said that high equity valuations could pose potential dangers, but that stability risks across the U.S. financial system remained in check. I would highlight that equity market valuations at this point are generally quite high, Yellen said. There are potential dangers there. Yellen vows on the run-up in stocks was the answer to the question from International Monetary Fund Managing Director Christine Legrand, who joined the Fed chief for the opening session of the Finance and Society Conference. We've also seen the compression of spreads on high-yield debt, which certainly looks like a reach for yield-type behavior, Yellen said. U.S. stocks were trading lower following the comments, building on earlier declines triggered by weak private job data. Another potential trouble spot for Yellen pointed out is long-term interest rates, which could spike as the Fed normalizes its policy, causing disruptions across the financial system. When the Fed decides it's time to begin raising rates, these term premiums could move up and we could see a sharp jump in long-term rates. So we're trying to communicate as clearly about our monetary policy so we don't take the markets by surprise, she said. U.S. Treasuries continued to slide for a ninth straight day on Wednesday amid global bond sell-off, with longer maturity treasuries declining the most.
Well, all right.
Yellen.
The bottom line here is you're going to see this massive. The next pop you hear, perhaps, will be that of the stock market, or the market popping, the bubble popping.
Nope. Yellen tempered the remarks, saying she did not see any bubbles forming at the moment.
No, none.
She described the risk to the financial stability as moderate, not elevated. The question and answer session with Lagarde occurred after the two delivered similar speeches highlighting the need to continue reining in risks across the banking sector. Yellen also pointed out the liquidity problems facing certain asset managers should they face a wave of redemptions.
Sometimes I like to find humor in things, and I admit that I'm a fan of the Chevy Chase movies, the vacation movies. And remember the Vegas vacation movie where they were taking the tour of the Hoover Dam, and Chevy Chase was inside the Clark Griswold, right? Yeah, that was his name. Inside the Hoover Dam, and I don't know, there was water coming out of one of the walls, and he like scratched out where the water was leaking, and all of a sudden it just kind of squirted out more. And he put a piece of gum, and as soon as he did that, to stop that leak, like 5 more leaks began. And
yeah,
did you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's Janet Yellen, except in the Chevy Chase mask. I mean, and that's the Fed and trying to keep their Ponzi scheme alive, to drag more people into it, more people like us into it, so they can rape, pillage, and plunder our wealth. And once they do that, just like the Titanic, send it out into the field of icebergs.
Also, this side of Bloomberg Business, there have been some big, mysterious moves in the market. The trend is no longer your friend. It just gives a bunch of charts, but it says it has been a busy period in markets across the globe with trends breaking down everywhere. The U.S. dollar has been weakening. Euro area sovereign debt has been selling off, causing yields to rise. Asian stocks, which have been in a bull market for years, have been feeling the pressure, with the Shanghai Composite Index closing lower in the last couple of sessions. Oil has been rallying, with the WTI crude moving above $62 on Wednesday morning. Copper, long considered a bellwether for the global economy, has been surging higher and higher recently. There doesn't seem to be any single driver that would explain all these moves, though plenty of analysis are pointing to the unwinding of consensus positions, such as trades built around the expectations of continued deflation and quantitative easing in Europe. Others have highlighted more technical factors and liquidity markets that have amplified the moves. Whatever the reason, the recent seismic activity in the markets has no doubt been painful for some big investors.
Well,
and that's how they end that article.
There's if I can jump in here real quick, many people are looking. Baltimore is not over. I just want to remind people that what we saw in Baltimore, you're going to be seeing this in cities all across the United States, and even some more urban areas, or suburban areas, here in the near term. No, I don't have a date. I don't know if it's going to be this summer. I have my suspicions, and I do suspect that this summer is going to be really the springboard into what's going to be happening. I mean, I believe that this summer we'll see many more race riots. Now, if it's not this summer, again, I don't like to set dates, because while the objectives remain the same, their calendar changes. But we're being led into a Baltimore of the United States, because we're seeing this erosion of our constitutional and civil rights. We're seeing an abuse of power by people in authority, that being the police. Now, this is not an indictment of the police as using a broad brush. What I'm saying is there are pockets of really psycho people in authority who have taken the authority and are abusing this authority. There's a perverse, there are perverse financial incentives as well that are tied to these activities, and all without any oversight. in this, we are living under, we're within this surveillance apparatus, this surveillance state, watching every move we make. So don't tell me, for example, that you've got in Baltimore, what happened in Baltimore, allowing these riots. Did you notice, and this is significant, did you notice in Baltimore that there was a stand-down order given? Did you, I mean, people say, well, that's not exactly what happened, and they're making excuses. Well, no, if you look at what happened with the mayor of Baltimore and the police department, the police stood down while the rioters burned, looted, and otherwise caused mayhem in Baltimore. Why was the stand-down order given? This on the heels or as a consequence of the this grouping of officers who reportedly, allegedly, using this as a legal word, had caused the death of a black man while in their custody. So you've got this almost a schizophrenic style situation. You've got this rogue element of police on one end, and then you've got these police who are not engaging the rioters on the other. So what's going on here? They're following orders in both cases. I believe both sides are following orders, or both types are following orders. And the orders are the ones that are causing the problems. But it's the personalities of the police. It's the psychological makeup of these new police officers, as Balco had in Rise of the Warrior Cop had stated that you've got this what would you call it? The military as well. You wouldn't have to call it anything except the militarization of the police that is being done through the federal from the federal level, and it's using these perverse financial incentives for the municipalities to militarize their police. Yet, when you've got a situation where the public can be protected, they're told to stand down. It's the leadership that's involved in this, but it's coming from the Department of Justice at the command of the executive branch right now. And this is an exacerbation of what happened under the Bush or the Clinton administration, and carried through into the Bush administration. Remember Waco. Remember Elian Gonzalez. Remember that? Remember that picture of the little boy, Elian Gonzalez? This is a long time ago, but do you remember? There is this perversity within the Department of Justice, and this rogue element within the police departments, whether they're federal or municipal, and we're seeing this play out. And I said all that to say this summer, or sometime soon, if not this summer, then sometime soon, you're going to see race riots and war between the haves and the have-nots break out all across America. You want to go to the store, you want to go to 7-Eleven, you want to go to the grocery store to get you want to drive to work, you want to take the subway, the bus, the MTA to work. Yeah, you better be ready for anything and everything, because it's not going to be safe anymore. And people will be, and see, everyone's looking for this big event. Everyone's looking for this big event to happen. Oh my goodness, an EMP. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it a real threat? Absolutely. Everyone's looking for suitcase nukes to go off. Everyone's looking for some sort of invasion. Everyone's looking for this big event. Folks, we're seeing it happen. All of this happen. We're seeing things develop, and you're seeing an elite coordination from the executive branch of the White House through the Congress and all across these little control centers all across this country, coordinating, choreographing a series of events while you watch and while you're waiting for this big event to take place. You don't need a big event. You just need a whole bunch of small events. And those who have said, have cited Cloward and Piven and applied the Cloward-Piven strategy to the events taking place today, well, you're more right than anything. And now, what Joe said earlier, Joe, the story from Greece and also the Yellen posture, the Fed posture, as dictated and delineated by Janet Yellen. Well, all of this combined, you're living the events that are going to lead up to this massive martial law. Now, people say it's martial law. It's not going to happen. But, it's already happening. It's happening in Baltimore. It's just not, no one said it's martial law. No, it's curfews. It's travel restrictions. Same thing, just a different name. Boy, should I be quiet now?
No.
Man, maybe I should switch to decaf.
I want to hit one story here before the break. I know we talked about this a little bit with Stan. Remember the supplies that were launched to the International Space Station that went out of orbit?
Yeah.
Well, it says, look out on Friday. Russian space officials warn stricken spacecraft might not burn up entirely in the atmosphere, but no one knows where it will hit. Russian space agency Roscosmos believes some fragments of its out-of-control spaceship may hit Earth on Friday. It claims most of the Progress spaceship will burn up in the atmosphere, as is the case all space cargo carriers once they delivered their shipments to the ISS, but there's a chance some parts will crash on land, although no one knows where or when these fragments will hit. The Progress spaceship was launched on April 28th, but entered the wrong orbit and went into an uncontrollable spin. Russian flight controllers have since been unable to regain control of the wayward ship, which is carrying 3 tons of supplies to the ISS. The spaceship will completely burn up in the layer of the atmosphere, and only a few parts of elements of its construction could reach the surface of the planet, the space agency said. Some have claimed there has been risk to citizens being struck by debris from the ship. CBS space consultant William Harswood said the chances were very close to zero. Now,
I'm going to put my bicycle helmet back on when I go outside. My wife's going to make me.
Yeah. Well, we talk about population control and how the world is overpopulated, or we talk about how the
persistent lie.
Well,
yeah.
This is an interesting piece here. It says, however, because the spacecraft cannot be brought back under partial control, the tumbling craft is left to re-enter on its own accord. Some pieces could make it to the ground. With more than 2/3 of the Earth covered by water and only 3% of land containing urban areas, it's highly unlikely that any part of the spacecraft would cause any damage.
Until it does. You see, that's the funky thing about statistics,
right? But to the overpopulation, so 3% of the land inhabited areas, urban areas,
right?
I mean that's 3%.
That's a good point, though. Yeah, you're right.
So they were saying there's such vast water and land resources, all uninhabited, all across the Earth, that chances are slim to none that it ever hit anybody because of
exactly
how uninhibited our planet is.
Not only uninhibited, but less inhabited.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry, there's a Freudian there with.
But they say the loss of supplies is a serious blow to the International Space Station, and it's not detrimental to the crew on board. But
no, the crew didn't get their fresh pajamas and
keep your helmets on Friday.
yeah, but wear your helmets outside because you just never know. And listeners, if anyone does, if you walk out in your backyard Friday or Saturday and you find a package that says made in Russia and or meant for the International Space Station, give me a call. We'll split the package. How's that? And if I do it, we'll split. If I find it in my backyard, we'll split it up and we'll sell it on eBay. Sell the wares on eBay. I wonder if
And you said Nathan Leal will be on Friday. There's been another train derailment in North Dakota. A town was evacuated. Massive fire rages, and another Buffett-owned oil train derails in North Dakota. Exactly 2 months after the latest Warren Buffett-owned BNSF train derailed near the spot where Galena River meets the Mississippi, resulting in a huge fire and evacuation of all homes in a 1-mile radius. Another Buffett BNSF oil trans derailed, this time near the town of Hemedal in North Dakota, resulting in the same outcome. According to the Bismarck Tribune, the town in Wells County was evacuated Tuesday morning after a train full of oil tanker cars derailed and burned about a mile and a half east of there.
There's something wrong with this, about these train derailments. And I believe that there is a fight within the ruling families. I really believe that there's this war, and Paul McGuire writes about it in his books, including his latest book, Mass Awakening, about the wars within the Illuminati, within the ruling classes.
Well, interestingly enough, a few days ago, I found this. It was released by, I believe, the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defense. Department of Transportation, EPA, and DHS. They released a preparedness initiatives by crude by rail transport. It's a DHS, DOT, EPA oil transport by rail preparedness initiative guide. It says domestic rail shipments of crude oil grew from 9,500 train car loads in 2008 to 435,000 in 2013, an increase of nearly 4,500%. This, they're saying, is due to the lack of the pipeline that they wanted to put in.
Really?
And now that they have such an increase in oil transports via train, that there has to be new initiatives and guidelines followed.
Are we seeing? Okay, let's look at the macrocosm here, or the macro view. Are we seeing then, perhaps what's the effect? What's the bottom line effect of these derailments?
Well, they say even after 2014, all the 2014 derailments and into this year, that in this article they're saying. Here's this. Says, ironically, this happens days, if not hours, after U.S. federal regulators were forced to devise new rules for the oil trans after 141 oil train derailments and fires in 2014. But they say the truth is that 99.9% of the shipments reach their destination safely. But they say 99.9% obviously isn't enough. They have to strive for perfection. The trains are often called bomb trains because of their black torpedo-shaped tanks and are filled with potentially explosive crude oil. They're an increasingly common sight in the nation's rail system as they carry out a million barrels of oil per day to refineries along the East Coast. The Department of Transportation spent 2 years formulating the recently released new train rules. The regulations introduce new tank car standards for oil and ethanol and mandate the use of electronically controlled brakes. They don't know what the problem is, but they say for those who are concerned that these countries and destructive BNSF derailments could lead to something, here's one photo which better explains than 1,000 words ever could why the outcome of all these train explodings will lead to absolutely nothing. And it shows a photo of Obama putting a medal on Warren Buffett.
Nice.
Yeah,
well,
that's from Zero Hedge.
And you've got multiple aspects, multiple facets to that, multiple consequences. There are intended consequences and consequences that are unintended, but nonetheless affect us as well. And it's interesting, Nathan, you mentioned Nathan Leal and train derailments and how this does fit with the larger picture of his, what do you call them, dreams, visions, or...
Well, every time I hear or see a train derailment, I think of him because he's the only one that ever brought it up. And said, that there's going to be train derailments. And I know North Dakota was part of the ones he first talked about, so on Friday it'll be interesting to get him on and to talk about that more. But we're up against the top of the hour break. We're going to be hitting other news headlines and taking your calls at 661-244-9839 on the other side of this break. That's 661-244-9839. Press 1 once you call in to let us know you want to talk to us. And we will take your call as well as finish up with our news.
I was corrected. I want to thank.
All right, this is going to be shorter than 46 minutes.
Yeah. Yes. I want to say thank you, Karen R. I stand corrected. Apparently, Nathan Leal, and I should have remembered this. You know what? There's no excuse for this. There is a link. And in fact, Karen R. provided me that link to a PDF. I believe it was from. She writes, I believe it was from Nathan Leal, and I've got it here somewhere where the acronym JADE was from a document a while back a military document that did state where JADE stands for Joint Assistant for Development or Deployment and Execution. So I stand corrected there. I do have documentation that does. I do have documentation that has been authenticated. With all the information we deal with, I admit I screw up. So thank you for that. And Teresa, thank you very much as well, Teresa B. Again, right on the money. The name JADE equals Joint Assistance, or the acronym is Joint Assistance for Development or Deployment. I keep saying development, deployment and execution. In Helm, she writes, now maybe this is the aspect I wasn't too sure of. Helm, Homeland Eradication of Local Militants. Now, 15, of course, designates the year 2015. I get that. She also writes the Air Force Research Laboratory Department State Publication 7277, Disarmament Series 5, released September 1961. Okay, so there you've got some background. Thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa B. Thank you so much, Karen R. And there are others as well who have, so I stand corrected, who have sent this information in, so I stand corrected on that. And one more, Missy B. I just want to, I left this open because I wanted to make a note of this. She writes where, and this is totally off topic, but I'm glad she writes this. Missy, thank you so much. That she said, I wanted you folks to know that there's another avenue to listen to your program, Tune In Radio. Tune In Radio, Joe. Do you know about that?
No.
Okay, I've got it, or I don't have it. My wife somehow, I don't carry a cell phone. I don't do that. The last time I had a cell phone was when my wife's mother was in the hospital. Of course, she passed on, but she handed me her cell phone, and where are the numbers on this thing, right? I mean, it's just anyway. I didn't know what to do with it, and I kept, calling people by accident and taking video or something, or I could see the ground through the phone because apparently there's a video thing. Anyway, I ended up putting it in the trunk because I just the car, because I know what to do with it. It's like, how do you turn it off? But anyway, I know that my wife had a function on that phone for a tune-in radio, so it was either that or an iPad or something to that effect. But so thank you for. Long way of saying thank you. Tune In Radio. Didn't know that, but we'll look that up and see. You're the tech guy. What am I saying that for?
Let's go to the phones. We're going to go to an international call. International call. We're coming to you first. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe. This is Bob in Guatemala. How are you guys tonight?
Fantastic. Probably not as great as you though. Guatemala. I don't know.
Oh well, yeah, but it's. We have our problems too. That's okay.
I know.
I do want to make one report that was kind of interesting, and if anybody has any idea about this, it might have more knowledge about this than I do, because I don't go to the city much, but I did have some immigration stuff to take care of over the past several weeks, and twice I've been to the city, Guatemala City, and I have seen a C-5A leaving the airport. Well, one thing, you feel it before you see it, because it's such a powerful airplane. And then the other day I was in a different part of the country and saw two Cobra attack helicopters. Like, what are they doing here? So, it was like, very interesting. So just FYI. The other thing I wanted to mention about you talking about the oil, the train with the oil. Hawk talks about this all the time, and he calls it the possible gray terror from some of the. Well, he blames it on the Spetsnaz a lot, but we don't really know. But it could be them or a whole lot of different other people too. So. That was another interesting thing.
Bob, I got to tell you something, and I've heard Hawk talk about that and the Spetsnaz with the trains, and I have to say that I don't think he's entirely out of the realm. I mean, I certainly think that's extremely possible with respect to Great Terror, only because we know that oil, energy, and such is being used as a weapon, and of course, the proxy wars that are being fought between the United States and Russia, at least at that level, certainly would and could be, a causative factor of at least some of these derailments, and especially when they involve oil and energy products. So that's very, very good. Thank you for reminding us of that. Very, very good.
But the other thing, but what you said that these trains, did you say the trains belong to Buffett? To
Yes.
Buffett?
Yeah.
Is that who's going? So, and what you said about, a war going on between the people who think they're the big shots, that was an interesting take on that too.
Yeah.
The other thing.
No, I just want to say Paul McGuire, and now we're talking about this at length, and there appears, and even Doc Marquis in a conversation today, is saying that there is some sort of, a play match going on between the elites and and I don't want to be graphic, but for to see who's going to be on top, and everything to them has a sexual undertone. But anyway, very interesting. Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, sir.
No, that's fine. And that was a great program last night with Steve and Tom and Chris. And it was one of the things that really caught my attention. I loved every minute of it. But it's when Tom mentioned what he did about Hillary at the end of it, it was like I had to go back and find that today on the archive, because what did he say? Because he said it so fast, and right at the end, and they were closing out, and it was like, what did he say? So I had to go back and listen to it again. But that was just really interesting about that. So,
you know what? Tell me, what did he say exactly about Hillary?
Okay, he talked about a book by either it was an autobiography maybe by Jack Parsons, because he mentioned L. Ron Hubbard also.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He mentioned Babylon Working, whatever. Is that a group of people or something? I don't know. And then he said the spirit of Babylon was incorporated in a female child in 1947 who would rise up as a feminist in the world, and only one person fits the bill, and that's Hillary.
Very good. That's right. Okay. I was trying to. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to go back.
I wrote it down so I can remember.
Well, being on this side of the microphone is challenging to get everything, because we're busy, doing some other things at the same time as trying to listen. So sometimes we miss it as well. But yeah, I'd urge everyone to go back and listen to that rebroadcast. Wow, fantastic! Thanks for bringing that up. And
of course, everything you guys do is awesome, and I appreciate what you do. I appreciate the time you spend doing it. I know the other things are coming into play that you're going to need more covering from us, who can, as Coach says, I can be on the Air Force. I can't be there on the SWAT team, but I can be on the Air Force. And I made a contact today. I hope it helps him a lot on this Ken Hovind situation today. I don't know. Just have to see how it works out. And, thank you. Remind you people who are listening, that his trial is like 11 days away now. Less than 12 days from now is when his trial starts. It'd be nice if we got the whole thing thrown out, because it's all a bunch of bunk. But that's just and these we're going to have persecution, and we know that. So yep. Appreciate you guys so much. God bless you so much every day.
God bless you, and our prayers are going out to you for your protection. And don't let those helicopters and the aircraft get too close to you, my friend.
I'm not worried about them helicopters. They got to deal with my angels before they get to me. So
there you go. All right.
Appreciate you guys so much. God bless. Take care.
Appreciate you
for the call.
Joe, I get, and folks, if you have the chance, real quick, Pass the Salt Ministries, Pass the Salt, Coach Dave Dobmeyer. I just want to say this. I received his newsletter, May 2015 newsletter. If you haven't gotten it in the mail, you might want to request it.
ptsalt.com.
ptsalt.com. Join the brigade at www.saltandlightbrigade.org. They created this website, and this saltandlightbrigade.org. It's www.saltandlightbrigade.org. And they ask very quickly, where do you fit into the brigade? The Air Force, the infantry, the SWAT team. Okay, the Air Force, the shock and awe, phrase used during the first Gulf War. Well, prayer warriors, basically, the infantry. No matter how effective the prayer bombing is, you can't win the battle without boots on the ground. And, of course, the infantry would phone calls, emails, faxes, and so on, petitions, and, now the SWAT team, that's a very special part of this, and they're going to be hitting the beach and show up at the point of attack as resistance to the forces of darkness. So please, folks, let Coach Dave Dobmeyer know that you're part of his ministry. You don't have to be, you just be you, and just email Coach Dave Dobmeyer, Pass the Salt Ministries, ptsalt.com, or in the brigade at saltandlightbrigade.org.
All right, let's go to area code 248 next. 248, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 248.
See, I shut up, and now they're not talking.
All right, we'll move on to the next caller. 580. 580, you're next. We're coming to you now, live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi.
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 Oh, wow. Okay. Turn that down. I'm on time. I really didn't think I would get through. Okay. Well, the other day we were listening to Alex Jones, and a caller just actually mentioned an emailer mentioned this document from 1961 when they were referring to Jade Helm. And there is actually a disarmament series number 5, Department of the State publication, and the publication's number is 7277, and it's the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World.
Is that a United Nations document?
No, there is a United Nations document, but this is not the same thing. It's actually from the United States, and it was passed under Kennedy in September of 1961.
Okay. And I just want to say, caller, Karen R. and Teresa B. had emailed me the same information or similar information, but thank you for this because, man, I did not, for whatever reason, I didn't know this. Okay. And
my husband did just say it was a United Nations thing because I'm sure they would use the UN to do this.
Yeah,
but
they do.
There is a meeting being held by the UN, and I don't know if these are related. We haven't found a relation to them as of right now. But there is, and this was a different treaty in 1970, and they ratify it every 5 years, and the meeting is held here this year from April 27th of 2015 to May 22nd of 2015 by the UN, and they, like I said, they review it every 5 years.
Wow. And this is year number 5. So in other words, this year they're talking about this subject.
Correct.
Okay.
In New York.
All right. Well, obviously we've got the most informed and well-researched audience in the world, as evidenced by you, caller, for this. Okay. Wow. All right. Joe just wrote this. That information down. We'll be looking at this as well, and thank your husband as well and you for this information. Man, I missed that. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thank you. Is there anything else on your mind?
No, I think that's all for right now.
Well, God bless you.
Very
thank
kind.
you so much. Thank you so much for your time and your husband's.
One extra
Sure.
thing. I just wanted to make a small shout out. We bought I don't know if you guys are aware of this company. It's Harvest Right, and they're actually a smaller company based in Utah. And we bought it's a in-home freeze-dry machine.
Really?
So I just wanted to make and they really helped me today, and they had tons of answers to my questions. So.
What's the name of the company? Harvest Right?
Harvest Right, yes.
Okay.
And they have a layaway program at zero interest. They're very kind people.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thank you for that bit of information. Harvest Right. We'll look into that company and see what that's all about. But you say very good company and a freeze dry machine. In other words, like a big dehydrator type thing, or
essentially what you can buy for preparedness, but you can do it in your own home in about 24 hours, and it makes about 2 number 10 cans per batch.
Oh wow. Okay, we'll definitely get the lowdown on the company, if not what's going on. Appreciate you telling us that. And listeners, you heard that. You can do your own research as well. That's Harvest Right. And caller, thank you so much for that information.
Thank you, Doug and Joe. Have a good night.
You too. God bless you and your husband. All right. Bye. Wow.
You too.
That's... Okay. Well,
let's go to our next caller, area code 520. 520. Coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, Joe and Doug. Good evening. It's Sam in Tucson.
Sam, how you doing?
Living the dream, brother. How are you?
Just if I was any better, I'd be 2 people.
Well said. Hey, a couple things. First, I'm not sure if you always hear about stuff, whether it be promotional items, but that Nature Box snacks, good God, those are just delicious, and they're reasonably priced, and it really helps you to be healthy. And I'm not to toot your horn, but man, those snacks, the cheddar jalapeno, the popcorn, it is really good.
I'll wrestle you for a pack. I'm going to tell you. Yeah, it's you know what we try to do, and we have people that come to us all the time that want us to advertise for them. We are very selective, and frankly, Nature Box is one of the best in terms of no fructose, no high fructose, none of that junk in there. So thank you I'm glad we like customer testimonials like that. So thank you.
And it's super tasty. To be brutally honest, I haven't had the chance to try the toffee yet, but it's on my list. But I finally broke down and ordered some snacks. So everybody listening, for real, you got to try it. It is super tasty. Serious. Now on to my comment. The only thing I wanted to say is this: we haven't heard. I'm sorry. God bless you guys. Y'all guys do a heck of a great job. You're on the wall. You're getting the information out. It is not easy, and you're definitely making sure the people who have eyes to see and ears to hear are definitely out there between Langford and Quayle and last night with Horn and Putnam. Y'all guys are putting the word out there. So thank you. I'm not sure how many times you can hear that, but not to stroke your ego, but really, I for me. I'm thankful for y'all guys' program, right?
Well, we're thankful.
The only thing
we're thankful for Tom and Chris, and I mean they're the guys that are really putting this stuff out there, and we're just sitting back and kind of giving them the avenue. So, anyway, go ahead.
On that same note, we haven't heard, or we as the Hagmann family, quote unquote, come on 4 paws up, right? We haven't heard from the guerrilla economists in a while. I'm not sure where you are with that. My only anecdotal story there is, this is like 3 or 4 years ago. I used to listen to Omega Man, and then for whatever reason I just stopped, and I had no idea there was beef at one time with Quayle and Omega Man, and then they patched things up, and then I listened to Omega Man here and there, and I'm not sure if that's the Holy Spirit talking to me, but we haven't heard from guerrilla economists, not to poke or pry. Is there any kind of upcoming, interviews maybe with him? That's my only question, and I can take it off air.
All right, buddy. Yeah, I'll answer that in full here, and thank you for your call.
Thanks,
Steve Quayle's got a great saying. God brings people into our lives that He makes better friends for us than we can make for ourselves, and at the same token, God removes people from our lives that shouldn't be there. Now this is not talking about any one particular person. That's kind of the backdrop, okay? Now, in terms of V, the guerrilla economist, and others, the question was V, the guerrilla economist. He's got roguemoney.net, his website, and he has he's chosen himself to branch out on his own and make his own decisions, and or as we all do, but made certain decisions that disincluded us, which is fine. There's, and people look at that and say, "Oh, there must have been a falling out." No, there's no falling out. No, it's really simple. Okay, there are different directions people will take, and we've taken different directions away from other people, and not speaking about V directly, no, but sometimes it's necessary because if everyone, for example, is pursuing the same avenue of interest or of subject matter, you have this redundancy, unnecessary redundancy. Now, to be specific with V, the Guerrilla Economist, his interest is separate from ours. He's got a very narrow focus on the economy and a different take on certain things than we do. That's perfectly acceptable. I like to say, if you got 5 people in the room and everyone's saying the same thing, then there's really only one person doing the thinking there. Bottom line, no problems that I know of, and certainly no problems from us. We give him the his blessings and whatever. But again, it's just a different trajectory, if you will, a different area of focus. And that area of focus, because of the level of speciality or specificity, perhaps, has really kind of it's caused it hasn't warranted us getting together on the radio. Does that make sense? I mean, seriously, there's no issue. It's just there's no issue. I mean, that's just what it is. So sometimes you just kind of it's kind of like when you go to college. You've got friends from college, and sometimes you lose contact with them because they're doing their thing. Simple as that. That's it. So
all right.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Let's keep going. We're going to go to area code 724 next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Oh, hi, Doug Joe. This is Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
I no longer live in Pittsburgh. I live in near Raleigh, North Carolina now.
What'd you do? Hey, what do you mean?
I moved.
You left the burg, huh?
I took Joel Skousen's advice, and I did what was called strategic relocation.
Yeah. Well,
I'm a woman of my word. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Well, I'll tell you. See, Joel Skousen is not. He's not a fan of mine. So,
really?
Well, yeah, but that's okay. If it's okay in your spirit that you moved, then God bless you, man.
It's not.
It's not okay?
No, it's not. It's just everything that is happening is against everything I thought. I have to tell you, I don't know if you could speak to this, but this has been a very discouraging period. Even though in the long run we know the Lord is coming, it's going through period. There's still a lot of uncertainty as a Christian. If I could just reveal my inner feelings or thoughts on some things.
Sure.
I saw a lot of this long ago. I've been kind of kicking and screaming through the last 25 years watching things, and then suddenly the anticipation, knowing the Lord's going to return, and that anticipation turns into kind of agonizing. There's this gap in that now and the time of the Lord to return, and we're to occupy and do these things. And I was reading Genesis about Noah. What Noah was doing. He just kept building that ark. He kept preparing that ark, and the big day came. So I know too, kind of look to what Noah did, If it's going to be just like the days of Noah and all this other stuff is going to start coming in this atmosphere, we're to prepare for that. But this whole move, because I have family down here, it seemed like a great idea, but part of just really feel torn because I'd rather be home, and where I feel everything's familiar and, and this is where I'm at, and I don't believe God would allow certain things to happen, I just couldn't find a house there, and and it's Mother's Day weekend, and I also have some grievances about Mother's Day. I can't have children, and I've had some, and it's a very hard holiday, especially now. I don't know if you guys understand. There's probably a lot of women out there that can relate to this, either lost children or can't have children. And this has been a particularly difficult holiday for me because I might have tumors again, and I just don't know, what I am to do, and my heart breaks because I wish we didn't have to suffer so much in this life. And then I see the children being murdered, and then the audacity the media has to pick a fight with Christians while children are being beheaded. They have such nerve. These people have such gall to pick up a ridiculous cherry pick every Christian out there. The people think that I lived the perfect life. It took a lot for me to get to my knees. I had an ego. I was prideful, but there were circumstances that brought me to my knees. And to watch them cherry pick every Christian, any little thing that Christians could do wrong, they'll go out of the way to blow it out of proportion. But if a Muslim does something in the name of a lie that is violent, it's just get huffed over, and people just wave this stuff off. And guys, I'm sorry to just kind of blurt it up, but maybe that's what it needs to be said. The cherry picking, the redundant audacity, the arrogance, the ignorance, it gets to be too much. And then we're called out to do these things where we're supposed to live, quietly and just take it nicely, eat crap nicely, and it just gets to be a lot, and I'm really leaving just a pour it out, I guess. I'm not sure why I just did that, but it did. And it gets to be enough, enough's enough. Sometimes you just have to say, I can't listen to these. I have to shut them off. I have to tune this stuff out now, because there comes a point that I've reached that point, and I'm sure there's people that have reached that point. It gets to be enough, a lot of these people live in very sheltered lives. They don't know what it's like to live through real torment and what it takes for real Christians to hit their knees every day, because there is a struggle. Many of us don't want to have to go through it, but we know in our heart of hearts this is what God wants us to do. But that struggle is still there. It still exists. But it's disgusting.
You make it's interesting. Your call, the passion that you've got, and I understand your frustration. And Joe is nodding here in agreement as well. What's the main thing, Jennifer, that you feel? What's your tipping point here? What's your tipping point?
I guess what really, when I watch people like Megyn Kelly, somebody on a Fox News panel, okay, and their lives are right now, as we see, there are people's lives falling apart, and they're living in their fortresses with, they live in their 3.2 children homes in New York, insulated. Bill Riley, these they don't live regular average folks that have to take SSI, not because they want to, but because there are circumstances that didn't knowingly know that they cause is pretty difficult. And live very institutionalized, and they'll tell you, they'll poo-poo you for not taking that vaccination when you know that is the reason why you might be crippled today. And they're going to poo-poo you, and they're going to cherry-pick you and me. I tell you, I know there's people today that I went in for a routine vaccination 5 years ago for the whooping cough. I have a whooping cough. I never had the whooping cough. I have it now. But they're going to tell you that you should go ahead and take that because, I would do that. She's telling us that she would make her children take a vaccination if she knew that her children would end up with a serious condition, maybe possibly paralyzed. Would she really be saying that? These people live very insulated lives. They have not lived through the things some of us have, but they can learn something from us, Christians, that have been brought to our knees. Maybe it's because we were brought to our knees much further along, and a lot of us have lived for a lifetime over some of those people. They have not lived through these things yet. I'm not saying that they will, but they are going to have to go through something. If they're going to be brought to knees, I don't think people who Christianity, they haven't lived through enough to be brought to their knees yet. It might take something horribly to bring them to their knees if God calls them to be. But my focus would be on the people who have been through it, who know it, and who are going to be to educate people. We are those people. I can say for right hand up for God, guys, I've lived 4 lifetimes over some people that are twice my age. These are the problems, but God had it so that I would live through these things for some purpose. And maybe the purpose is for me to show people that think streetwise. Okay, don't think like those people that live in their, fortresses and insulated world, because they just don't get it. They haven't lived through it. It's a very easy, very protected world. But they, too, I'm sure there are reasons that brought them to that place. They made decisions and swore to probably in these contracts that can't come out and spill it out like some of the alternative media can't.
Right.
They just haven't seen the world.
Jennifer, you're exactly right. If I can just chime in here and just say this, for example, about problems and about stress. You look at, I don't know the story of, behind Bill O'Reilly or Megyn Kelly or these high-profile people. Look, they could have had miserable childhoods and miserable lives. And
no. I don't believe that. They live in Levittown. I know the area. I know about his family. My in-laws lived up in Long Island. There's just a different persona. I mean, Bill O'Reilly really has, if he's lived through anything, he's never revealed that side to him. He won't. He's too, he's too guarded, and he has a reputation. He's more concerned about his reputation and keeping that, status quo going. He's,
right.
And I'm not saying that he doesn't care. I'm saying that he cares about some of the wrong things. His priorities are not always similar to the average folks.
It reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine, and I remember this vividly. I stopped to see him, and he lived in near Tarpon Springs, Florida, and he had this huge, and I mean huge yacht, and it was filling up. He had an issue with a leak and a faulty bilge pump. And he lived in this, this is 4 years ago, lived in this beautiful home. I don't know, it was like a $4 million home back then. And I remember visiting him. I had, I think, $15 or $20 in my pocket. I had nothing in my bank account. I was working, 2 jobs at the time. I think I was a month and a half behind on my mortgage payment. Had nothing. I mean, just nothing. And he says, I want to tell you, I have so much stress in my life. Look at my boat. I can't get a bilge pump working. Okay? And the reason I said that is, and he defined stress. His stress is having that problem with his big boat as he lived in this mansion. Okay? It's all relative. But that man ended up taking his own life. Okay.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Because they haven't lived through. They really haven't lived through. I mean, what does kill you will make you stronger, I guess. I've heard it, but it doesn't make it easier. And I'm sure there are people that have certain limits. I thought I reached my limit. I thought I did. After going through, my first surgery, I thought I'd reached my limit. But now I'm at the point where I at least listen to the news and then combined with the things in front of me and the cherry picking. I'm not a big fan of what's going on either. But to take sides on this issue, we've been called out as religious people. But I have to tell you, you won't see me sitting in the church pew poo-pooing people saying, what if, couldn't, I just don't have time for that. I'm there because I want to know what the Lord wants me to do every day, because sometimes I don't know the answer. And I don't have time to sit there and pick out people's character flaws. I just don't have time for it. I don't have time to listen to people that do it. It's just not in my DNA. I want to hear about the bigger issues. I want to hear solutions. I want to hear people are trying to do something to at least attempt to do something. When Steve Quayle said, when Paul McGuire mentioned it, remember he said, at least if we pray, it's better than sitting back, and I've heard you say it before. I've heard Doug say it. I've heard other radio people that from the audience say it. I mean, we have to at least pray or do something. We can't just sit back and be doormats, because we're the idiots that have to sit there and listen to this. I'm just not going to. There comes a point. The cherry picking, like I said, I keep mentioning the cherry picking because I look at Obama. That's all it is. It's a bunch of spoiled brats that get everything they want. I don't get what I want. I get what I need. But and to my own contentment, thank God. I don't want to have, getting what you want doesn't always necessarily make you happy either. And I think that's probably President Obama's biggest problem. He is never going to be happy because he gets everything he wants. And unfortunately, he wouldn't know how to handle if he didn't get what he wanted. And I think he's probably the most unhappiest person in the world because he has been catered to all his life. He's probably never had a real nurturing mother or father relationship, to be honest with you. The absentee father and the issues with his mother, I'm not surprised he is who he is today. I'm not surprised because just look into the family dynamic, it's just messed up. So to see him overcompensate when he talks about Trayvon Martin, he wants to fulfill that kind of fatherly role that he never had. So all this doesn't surprise me. What Obama's doing, it's not what Obama's doing. It's watching the Republicans just kind of look like wishy-washy wimps, just wishy-washy. Just let everybody walk over me because where's the man? Where are these men that stood up and showed some spine, got some guts? You guys, how many times women want to see men show? It takes more courage to stand in front of that podium and say it like it is than sit there and have a fist fight. It takes more bravery, more emotional courage and emotional intelligence to be sensitive. That's what a real man does. And we don't have that in Washington, D.C. anymore. We have a bunch of wimpy, complaining. The posture there is just ridiculous, guys. And as long as people are like that, don't expect things to change. They just get worse because it's a little too much. And I wish I could talk to some of their mothers and ask them what they would be doing on Mother's Day. I would be putting them in the corner for about 20 minutes, and we're going to have a talk. You're going to start thinking differently in Washington, D.C., and if you're going to be a wimp, you might as well just forfeit your position because I'm embarrassed to watch you act like an idiot.
Wow.
If I was the mother, I just wouldn't be able to watch my son. If I had a son that was in D.C., I would be like, just forfeit because you're embarrassing yourself. And that's what it is. These men are embarrassing. They're embarrassing to watch. They just sit there and let Everybody walks over them. And that's why China does what they do. That's why Russia does what they do. Because they know that their mothers wouldn't put up with it.
Jennifer, you covered a lot of ground. With your phone call, you covered a lot of ground here, I got to tell you.
Because it's real, guys. It's the real thing. If you think those mothers in China would let their sons look like the idiots that we have in Washington, D.C., if their moms knew that their sons look like that, no. That's probably why Putin doesn't, because probably his mom told him, you ain't going to look like that. You don't want to look like that poser over there in Washington, D.C., I'm going to put you in the corner for about 20 minutes. Because they are a bunch of posers.
We love you. We love your passion. I got to tell you, Jennifer, you're just you're on fire, and thank you. You know what? Everything. I just want to say this about your strategic relocation. If anything that's been done, I'm sure can be undone. And in terms of well, and the other thing too, in terms of your health, without your health, you don't have. And you need your health, so you got to take care of yourself. And
that's right.
And as far as the other issues, you're exactly right. We do have a bunch of posers out there. We've got a bunch of metrosexuals, and
that's it.
They're short on testosterone.
That's exactly. I mean, you want a female's perspective. You just said it. Metrosexuals are just. Where's the balance with the mother and the father? Because when I look at these guys, and I don't care how old they are, I don't care if they're Bill Clinton's age on down, something seriously has a lot to do with the way they were raised and how the parent was the mother, the strong rule, more dominant. There's a lot that plays into this. I look at this. I'm sorry, I'm going to get into the psychology of it, but you could see there's a real deficit in some of these men's lives. Where's their mother? What was their father's position role? And, it reads like a book. When I look at Bill Clinton, his whole life to me makes sense because look at his family dynamic. I mean, a lot can be said about this, guys. I mean, I'm not surprised. How do you reverse it? I don't know. You apply reverse psychology or something, but I'm talking to the normal average person that surveys this every day, and they're like, there are ways this can be rectified. A lot of the problems that have been created because of egos. That's simply all it is a bunch of egos up there. And somebody needed to step in and say, hey, guys, I mean, I could probably have a conversation with Obama and come out more successful than any of them because I would talk real to him and I wouldn't have this song and dance. And I just wouldn't. But I know, I could tell you right now, his mother not being the type of woman that she needs to be for her own son, he probably would be the person he is today. He'd probably be a much better person in some areas, and then maybe not. But I see that. And guys, listen, it's Mother's Day weekend. There are a lot of mothers that are disappointed in some of the things that have happened, but overall, they want their children to do better because not for selfish reasons, because overall they want to see them succeed in life. And no one wants to see their children with, at the end of a barrel. At the end of the day, they don't want to see their children to be so lost without hope that they have to end their life. I know there's so many mothers that wish they could reach out to the kids and probably can, but that doesn't mean you can't pray for them. There are things we can do. And I pray for our president. I pray for those posers in Washington, D.C. I pray that their mothers intercede. I pray their daughters intercede, because those are the winners. Those are the people that are going to intercede. It's going to be Obama's daughters. It's going to be the women around him that really do care about him. They're going to say, hey, listen, you don't have to take my advice, but from a women's perspective, A, B, C, and D. So,
Jennifer, your passion has taken us out of we are done. We're out of time. God bless you. Thank you for your passion.
Sorry, I'm sorry that I did that. I did go overboard. I apologize. Thank
Don't
you, guys.
apologize. All right. God bless. Folks,
All right, good night.
that's going to do it for us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Well, you heard the passion of Jennifer, and I'm going to tell you something right now. We're facing a lot of things. As one of the callers said here coming up on May 18th, the trial of Kent Hovind. We need to be unleashing the Salt and Light Brigade, as Coach Dave Dobmeyer says. Also, in July, the Gettysburg of gay marriage coming, the Gettysburg of homosexual marriage, that is. You know what? We have to make our mothers proud, as Jennifer said, or at least follow our own conscience in our own God. And let's stand for what's right. Let's do what's right. Until tomorrow.
Stay safe. God bless. Have a great night.